Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us today. I'm Dale Wielden, President and CEO for the British Columbia Economic Development Association. Happy that you were all able to join us to find out more information on InBC, which is a Crown corporation of the province of British Columbia. They have a very big mandate that they'll be doing, but they have a great team established to carry out the work that they'll be doing. Today with us, with us from InBC is I'm going to actually start with Shikhank Sharma and Leah Wehan, and also Jill Earthy. Jill is the CEO for InBC, and I think, Jill, will you be starting off with a few words, and then we'll hand it over to Shikhank.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dale. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to see some familiar faces from around the province, and some new people that I look forward to meeting and collaborating with. So we just thought we would walk through a short presentation. So myself and Leah, who's our Chief Investment Officer, and then we will open it up for some conversation and questions. So we'll move through the slide deck, but first, just of course, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the unceded and traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh, and very grateful to live, work, and play on this beautiful land. And also just acknowledging that as a Crown corporation, our mandate does cover all regions of British Columbia, which is why we're so excited to have you all here. And that, of course, comprises the territories of more than 200 distinct First Nations, each with their own unique traditions and history, and many more Indigenous, Inuit, and Métis communities and community members. So grateful for that. So as Dale mentioned, I'm the CEO, and Leah Wehan, who will be co-presenting with me today, is our Chief Investment Officer. We also do have Shikhank here with us as well, and he's our Partnerships Manager. So thank you. I know some of you, and if we want to make this interactive, because Zoom allows us to do that, you could put up your hand if you have heard of InBC or have been following along. Feel free to use your icons, your reactions to do so. But InBC was established by the British Columbia government as a Crown corporation to provide $500 million in capital to grow companies that generate financial return and impact for BC. So we have a triple bottom line mandate focused on people, planet, and profit. And all of you do such incredible work around the province, supporting your communities and economic development. So some of these will not come as a surprise to you on why InBC and why now. BC-based companies, especially small and medium-sized companies, receive a very small percentage of Canadian capital. And so we really believe that there's a large gap or opportunity to provide more British Columbia sources of capital as well as Canadian sources of capital to help these businesses stay and grow in this province. And we also know that along that growth continuum, as businesses are growing, they require more capital to scale up and grow here, obviously attract talent, create quality jobs. And we would rather they stayed in this province versus that early risk of being purchased by investors from outside the province. And then there's the fact that not all financing models that currently exist support all of the different needs and growth pathways of different types of entrepreneurs from different underestimated groups, in particular when you think about women, Indigenous-owned businesses, or other or immigrant entrepreneurs or other underestimated groups. And then there's these urgent issues that are facing all of us right now. And I know some communities feel this heavier than others, but just the urgent need to address climate change. And we look at Indigenous reconciliation as well as diversity, equity, inclusion. And we really believe that there is an opportunity to generate financial as well as those social and environmental returns for British Columbia while focusing on both these current and future challenges. So I know some of you have been following along for a while now. The legislation for InBC passed in May of 2021, so about 18 months ago. I started in December. Leah joined in April. And we do now have a team of approximately 15 people. working on a variety of different aspects of our business as we get up and running. But one of the key pieces of work that we did in the spring was the development of our investment policy statement. So really our guidelines on how we're going to invest and outlines our strategy and how we're going to do that. We launched that last month after receiving approval through Treasury Board. And it is available on our website. Some of you may have reviewed it already. We also have some summary documents, a 2-pager and a 10-pager as well. So you get to choose your flavor of how you'd like to review that. We can also post the links in the chat function. And we're on target now to announce our first fund investments by the end of the year. And Leah will expand on this further, but we will then begin investing directly into companies next spring. So I think as we're building a new team and we're doing something at the intersection of finance and impact, it's really important that we have strong values. And our team absolutely is aligned with the mission that we're on. So these are our team values, and I'm sharing them just because it is important for you all to understand how we are thinking about things, how we're operating ourselves, because of course we're looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability practices in our operations, as well as in our investment decisions. So we're really focused on stewarding positive change. We are entrusted with your money as public, as provincial taxpayers to really have this broad positive change for BC, and we take that very seriously. We also are really interested in collaborating for impact, and we will be engaging with many of you, we hope, in different communities across the province when we look at opportunities to really broaden that impact that we can have, and really interested in getting different perspectives and ensuring that there is regional representation. And then staying curious. And we look at that both as learning from each other on our team, in our community, across the ecosystem, as well as in the companies that we're and funds that we're investing in. It's ensuring we're asking questions and being open-minded as we continue to learn and always be curious. And then, of course, it's around catalyzing action. You know, the challenges our world faces do require action and leadership, and we're really here to galvanize a better future. So that's sort of where we're at as an organization, but what we're really excited about is moving forward into the investment phase. So I'll hand it over to Leah to share some more details on that strategy.
Thank you, Jill. So as Jill mentioned, we'll be investing starting with funds and then eventually in companies. And maybe taking a step back, one of the things that we looked at as we were developing the investment strategy for InBC was trying to understand what are the gaps and needs across the ecosystem. And I think it was really clear that depending on the stage of growth of a company, they had different challenges and different needs. And with that, you know, we then formulated our strategy to see how can we address those needs through different mechanisms of either going direct into companies versus developing funds. And I think just one general piece is that we need more investors in British Columbia. There aren't a lot, especially sizable investors, who can write big checks. But even for the much smaller checks, it's typically within angel networks or much smaller groups. And so that's where we decided to first prioritize investing in funds so that we can grow the overall ecosystem of capital providers in the province, which, you know, with our model, we always invest alongside others. So even in a fund that we're investing in, they have to raise additional funds, which allows us to grow the overall pool of capital available. So we've started that process. We're looking forward to announcing later this year our initial investments in funds, and we'll continue to be talking to funds across the full spectrum as we roll into next year. Once we establish more of this base of funds that we've invested in, we then want to start pursuing opportunities to invest directly. So starting with what we're calling co-investments alongside the funds we've already invested in, because again, those are funds that we've already entrusted with our capital and can give us insights into their pipeline and being able to track some of those opportunities alongside them. And also then opening up the process so that other companies can also apply through the process. As well, when we think about the different stages of growth, the plan is, you know, at the seed stage, we'll invest exclusively in funds. Companies at the seed stage require a lot more support beyond the capital. That's where having more capital providers who have the expertise to help them mitigate the science and technical risk and really help them start thinking about early commercialization is really really critical. And so we want to build more funds that have that capability and capacity. And then we would start looking at co-investment and direct investment opportunities once they've hit that Series A stage and later where they've started commercializing, getting revenue all the way through the scale up phase. Sorry, and just one note is, our primary focus is going to be with equity. I think as the portfolio develops and as we continue to assess the needs of the market, we do have flexibility to consider others models of financing, but initial focus will be equity. So in terms of, Jill mentioned earlier, our triple bottom line focus around people, planet, and profit. We wanted to make sure that we could translate that into meaningful investment themes that folks could understand, but also align to the broader priorities of our shareholders, which are the Ministry of Finance, as well as the Ministry of Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation. And so looking at the blueprints for the Stronger BC Economic Recovery Plan, as well as the Clean BC Plan, we then compare that against, some of the more global priorities through the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People, to help us really hone in on these 4 specific impact objectives. So the first is around driving climate action. How do we help invest in solutions and opportunities that will help transition us towards a net zero economy and create a more climate resilient community as well? And so the investment themes within that include sustainable food and agriculture, decarbonization technologies, increasing the access to affordable and clean energy, as well as the circular economy in order to reduce waste and create more value add out of that. The second impact objective we have is around innovating for the future. So BC is a very resource-rich economy, and we want to help to invest in opportunities that can help diversify our economy beyond a resource-based focus to enable more future economic growth in the province. And so that looks at things like sustainable and resilient supply chains, the digitization of innovation within industries, biotech and life sciences, and future work readiness, which is really how do we help build talent to help fuel these future industries as well. The third impact objective we have is around advancing reconciliation. And this is really helping to invest in solutions that strengthen partnerships and economic opportunities for Indigenous peoples across the province. And this is really about advancing economic opportunities through entrepreneurship, Indigenous health and well-being, financial access and inclusion, and also investing in Indigenous innovations. And then the fourth impact objective we have is around elevating inclusive communities. And this is really investing in solutions to improve outcomes and for underrepresented people and communities across the province. So this includes looking at health and well-being for diverse communities and diverse populations whose needs aren't always met by, the existing solutions that are out there. It's about creating more accessible and inclusive products and solutions and providing equitable access to quality education, as well as the care economy. And I'd say worth noting across all of our impact objectives, we really do look at ensuring that we're embedding diversity, equity, inclusion in terms of evaluating founders. So we don't expect only to be investing in female founders in our inclusive community pillar, for example. It really is something that's embedded across our approach. So as we go to the next slide, this really talks about how we'll invest and the criteria we look at in terms of those investments. So first and foremost, being a taxpayer-funded organization, we want to make sure that the dollars that we're putting to work benefit British Columbians. So, for us, assessing a strong connection to BC is really important. And that's, going beyond, where an organization is headquartered to looking at where are the key decision makers, where are their employees based, where's the revenue being driven from, where's the supply chain. And so the more of those points you have, the stronger that connection to BC becomes. The second thing we look at is that alignment to one of the 4 impact objectives earlier. For us, it's not just, do you fit within this theme, but how do you measure for that? And how is that embedded in the core of your business model is really critical. And then the third piece is around environmental, social, and governance risk. And so we separate out impact from ESG in the sense that impact is the outcome of the product or solution provided versus ESG is and DEI as an extension of that are how you within your organization manage. And so, for us, it's equally important to be driving, impact-oriented outcomes, but also as an organization ensuring that they've got aligned values in terms of how they operate their businesses. And it's something that we do within our own operations as well. Is, you know, if we're expecting folks we invest in to have these things in place, we definitely also value that on our side. And then finally, the ability to generate financial returns. And I think, you know, is really critical for us because we want to make sure, obviously, we're driving returns back for British Columbians, but also the returns allow us to not only cover our cost of capital, but really reinvest the proceeds so that we can continue to invest in companies and funds that will grow our BC ecosystem. And that, I think, is what differentiates us from other programming that a government can provide, which provides grants or loans and other types of guarantees, right? Our goal is to become evergreen, and that requires the financial return aspect of it as well. So, you know, when we think about assessing any investment opportunity, we look at both impact and financial returns from start to finish. So from when we're screening an opportunity, looking at, you know, what is that impact and how is that embedded in the core business model, while looking at the financial potential of an opportunity. And this cascades through our due diligence process, getting deeper to understand how they measure, you know, assessing any ESG risks, looking at DEI practices or diversity, equity, inclusion practices, and how that then also looks at their business operations and, you know, how are they being able to generate returns. You know, as we get to the point where we're aligning on moving forward with the investment, then working with them to structure the deal and negotiate the terms, which includes embedding impact KPIs as part of that. And then finally, post-investment, continuing to track and monitor performance from both an impact and financial perspective. And so when we look at what does success mean for InBC, at our macro level, we look at across our portfolio, these 6 dimensions around: 1, are we moving the needle and investing in more diverse founders and businesses that are supporting diverse populations? Are we getting geographic reach across the province? So not just investing in the Lower Mainland, but really to other parts of the province where there are opportunities for innovation. Are we making a meaningful and positive impact on Indigenous communities and driving economic growth for them? Are we ourselves being able to generate returns in order to enable our Evergreen Fund? Are we able to measure our impact on being able to decarbonize the economy? And then finally, are we creating quality jobs and moving the needle from an economic development perspective? And we don't expect every investment to tick off all 6 of these boxes. This is really meant at an aggregate portfolio level. And that'll help influence, you know, as we start building our portfolio, identifying where there might be gaps or opportunities where we want to, you know, spend a bit more time, build more capacity, and generate more opportunities in those areas.
Thanks, Leah. So just as we wrap up, just thinking about some ways that we can all collaborate. So we know that we have a very full ecosystem across the province here. We've separated some of the key groups that we work with into the capital providers. That includes other government funding sources, banks, venture funds, and some private equity and angel groups. Then we have the ecosystem builders, and that can include the provincial and federal agencies, as well as post-secondary institutions, chambers of commerce, and BC Economic Development Association as an example. And then we have the entrepreneurial support organizations, those organizations that work directly as well with entrepreneurs. I know some of you do as well. And then we have the private companies seeking investment. And so it's lots of different activities going on. And so we want to be a trusted partner in the ecosystem. You know, besides helping companies to grow and scale, we really also have a mission to help lift the entire ecosystem. You know, Leah referenced attracting additional capital to the province to support BC-based companies, but also to support companies with additional supports and services. So there's lots of different ways we can do that, including working with all of you to identify investment opportunities. If you see when we're ready to invest directly in companies, if you see companies in your communities aligned with our impact objectives and the other criteria that Leah outlined, then we're really interested in that. We also see opportunities potentially to co-invest and to knowledge share. And then, of course, just to work with all of you to advance the entrepreneurship and investment ecosystem across all of BC's economic regions. Because we really believe that together we can build a sustainable and inclusive future for BC. So thank you for your time listening to us chat, but now we're happy to take some questions.
Great, thanks very much, Jill and the team for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Feel free to jump in. Just you can unmute yourself. You don't need to use the chat. If you have some questions, just be respectful of somebody else is, of course, speaking. But Barry?
Hi, Barry Reardon with Economic Development Couch in Vancouver Island. I'm just your criteria for investing in companies. Did I say here you say that you would consider investing in them once they've reached Series A level, or was there? Can you explain the criteria that you're? I know you're not there yet, but you're considering, so I can kind of think of companies that would align with where you're going to be at. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Barry. So, in terms of stage of growth, it would be Series A and later. In terms of criteria, it still would be within those 4 areas that were outlined around having the strong connection to BC, the impact alignment and measurability of how they would demonstrate that impact as part of their core business model. The ESG and risk screening, as well as looking at their DEI practices, and finally the financial returns. So those, I would say, regardless if you're a fund or a company, we would be looking at across those 4 elements. Now, how that translates as a company versus a fund obviously varies a bit, and we'll have more information on that in the new year as we start preparing to roll out the direct investment program.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, I know within Vancouver Island, a lot of companies may not be at that level. So finding ways to support companies that are at that lower level in terms of building their skills and getting access to angel, et cetera, and other funds, I think would be really important to also concentrate on, especially for rural communities. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's where, one, building out more fund managers that can invest at that stage and provide some of that support. And the other part of it is a lot of partnerships as well, which Shakonka is helping to drive in terms of recognizing that, there are, different ways to support entrepreneurs beyond the capital that we can provide.
Great. Does anybody, thanks, Barry, for asking the question. Anybody else have any questions for the team? I know that Shakak just uploaded a link to the chat box with a short 2-page summary of the strategy that can be found online. And then there's also another link for a summary. Sorry, I guess it's a larger summary.
More details.
Of the strategy. So I think that would be very helpful for people to download. And Ashley, I think we'll be putting that on some of our websites as well for people to download, if that's okay, Jill. So
yeah, sure. Or link to our website. It is also helpful just for those ongoing updates.
Sure.
And that is one of the things we're trying to do too, is some of you may be following, but we are sending out monthly newsletters just with our updates and as we're progressing, and tools and resources as well. So if you're open to that, that's something we appreciate you following along on. And I know Dale, you and your team have been so great at helping to support and promote some of the things that we've been doing too.
Yep, and we'll continue to do that. Did you want if people have questions or additional questions, or would just say something comes along their desk and they're looking for investment for any of their companies, would you who should they be contacting? Should there be is there a list somewhere of specific contacts that they should reach out to?
Yeah, so there's a couple of steps to our process. So following along the newsletter, once we open up in the spring, we are setting up a process and a bit of an intake form on our website for companies that are interested in applying to be considered for our funding. So we would encourage people to direct any potential companies to that portal once it's open, just because we already are receiving a lot of requests, so we want to make sure we're considering everybody in the same way through the same channels. So that would be greatly appreciated. We also will be hosting, starting in the new year, some monthly information sessions. So Ask Me Anything sessions that will kind of be on a recurring basis. So that will be a great resource, both for service providers and supporters and champions like those of you on the call, as well as for entrepreneurs. So that's another way. And then any other general inquiries, we do encourage the info at inbcinvestment.ca. I say that, I know it's not always the most personal touch, but we do have 2 people monitoring that consistently, and it will make sure it will get to the right team member.
Great.
Yeah, maybe just to build on Jill's the comment, we want to develop a process that is scalable, and the reality is our email boxes are not scalable for the volume of people that are interested in applying. And so I think, we're trying to make sure we're designing the process in a way that is, empathetic and supportive of the entrepreneurs. But we also know that if you're stuck in the thousands of emails that we get on this, it's not going to be a great experience either. So that's why we're trying to, even, trusted friends and partners, we're like, please use that process when it happens, not telling us directly for it.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Well, I don't see anybody else unmuting themselves, so that's okay. Jill, this was great. I really greatly appreciate you and your team for coming on and for being so responsive when we reached out to see if we could do something. I do want to remind everybody that we do have the BC Economic Summit in April 16th to the 18th. We have launched that information. It's available online. The lineup and the agenda is still being worked on. Had some great meetings today with the city of Penticton, and we're planning some great activities as well. We hope that you'll all be part of the summit here in Penticton. So and on that particular note, I am on the traditional territory of the Syilx Okanagan people, and that, of course, is where the BC Economic Summit will be. We're hoping to partner with our First Nations friends and neighbors to be part of the summit as well. And please share the information. So, all right, everyone, thank you very much, and I wish you all a good afternoon.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Take care.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in Penticton.
Yes, for sure.
Bye.
Bye.